Sist måned tok reporteren James Bloodworth på seg noen av Englands dårligst betalte jobber for å studere et stadig mer effektivt samfunn fra vrangsiden. En av jobbene var som Uber-sjåfør, en annen på et av Amazons lagre. Han kommer ikke til å gjøre det igjen. Ta godt imot James Bloodworth. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
First of all, tell me, what did you set out to investigate? What was it that you wanted to investigate?
So, 2016, I was looking at investigating the rise in the gig economy, the rise in precarious work. So, in the last 10 years, in England, in Europe, in America, you've seen a big rise in the number of people in temporary jobs, something called zero-hours contracts, so no guaranteed hours each week. There's this air of kind of flexibility to it. So this idea that, like someone who plays in a band or something, like you can turn up to the gig when you want, the word gig economy is giving it this kind of glamour that it's supposed to have, that you have freedom to work when you want, how you want, this kind of thing.
And the first job you took was at the fulfillment center.
So I worked in an Amazon warehouse, and it was called a fulfillment. We weren't allowed as workers to call it a warehouse. We had to call it a fulfillment center. We also weren't workers. We were called associates. I remember we were told on the first day, Jeff Bezos is an associate and so are you. We're all one big happy family. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you lost your job, you weren't fired or sacked, you were released. Or as we used to joke, you've actually been promoted to a customer. That was us. They didn't tell us that.
So tell me, how was a normal work day?
You clock in with this algorithmic device which sends you to different parts of the warehouse.
Okay, so you have this device that's your boss in a way.
Yeah, essentially. Tracking when you log on, when you log off, that kind of thing. Timing you for how fast you do everything. Because you have to go through security every time you leave to go to the toilet or go on a break, airport-style security. And so you have people on one occasion, well, on a couple of occasions, urinating in Coke bottles because they're afraid to go to the toilet because they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs if they do that. I mean, a survey was done of the warehouse I worked in, and 74% of staff were afraid to go to the bathroom because of productivity targets.
What kind of people was working there?
It was most of my co-workers were migrant workers. It was migrant workers from typically Romania, typically Eastern Europe, but predominantly Romania, some from Bulgaria. But there was only, doing the job I did, there were only 3 or 4 English people out of several hundred. Local people did work there initially, but then some of the things that were going on in the warehouse, they very quickly either lost their jobs. All of the jobs we did were temporary anyway, so after 9 months you would lose your job. If you took a day off sick, you'd receive a disciplinary for that, even if you had a note from the doctors. So I tested that policy, took a day off sick. When I went back to work, I received a disciplinary for it. And if you receive 6 of these, you lose your job entirely. So if you take 6 days off, you're receiving 1 point each day. And so say you had the flu or something, then you've lost your job. And this is the biggest employer in this town. And it's the biggest company in the world, headed by the richest man in the world. And that was my experience there.
You also worked for Uber. You were a driver.
The bonus of being an Uber driver is you can work when you want in that you don't have to turn the phone on. It's not like your manager's phoning you up, where are you, where are you? It's you can turn your phone off. But, I mean, we earn, in terms of flexibility with Uber, I mean, we were very tightly controlled by the company still. So it didn't really feel like self-employment. We were told you can't pick and choose what jobs you do. We were told even what we could talk about in the back with a passenger in the back of our car. So we weren't allowed to talk about politics, religion or sport, which as a taxi driver, what else are you supposed to talk about? That is everything.
So we couldn't talk about him?
No, you might get in a row with the passenger.
Don't mention Victor.
Well, I'm a Liverpool fan, so yeah, we might get in a row.
What's the most boring job you ever had?
Well, I worked 1 day with my brother.
1 day?
Yeah, just 1 day when I was 14.
So that's a very short career. What about you?
Yeah, I worked at McDonald's and IKEA and in some phone companies. So, but I can, like McDonald's, it was a really good company, but still you can feel that it's a tough job.
What kind of response did they give you afterwards? These companies?
Hostile, man. Well, the other companies haven't really said much, but Amazon have been quite hostile since. They haven't. So I mean, we had the book. Everything in the book was checked by lawyers before the book went out. Obviously, they haven't really picked any details within the book. It's more just become a saying that I did it just to sensationalise, just did it to sell books, which is partly true because it's my job. But the stuff in the book is also true.
But this is the same. We reached out before this interview, and they sent us the same response. And they also claim is that you worked there for 9 days.
Well, it was 12 days. 1 day off sick, 1 day the warehouse was closed, and 1 day's missing. I don't know where that's gone.
Your purpose was to be negative.
When they treat the workers well, I'm honest about that in the book. So a company, Admiral, a car insurance company, I worked in the call centre there for them, and I thought they treated the staff fairly well, and I was honest about that. But Amazon, that wasn't my experience at all.
Isn't this also a losing battle? Can't you see that this is the way the world moves, in a way?
You have to deal with it as a workplace thing. So there's no trade unions in Amazon, for example. You have to get things like that into some of these workplaces so that you can... So those people, these migrants who are working in these places who are kind of voiceless, so they have someone standing in their corner and sticking up for them, basically, against the biggest companies in the world.
James, your book is out now in Norway. It's called Hired. It's also possible to buy it from Amazon.
This comes up every time. Yeah, well, I mean, the publisher. If I said to the publisher, it was my first book. If I said to the publisher, we can't sell it on Amazon, they say, "Bye, James. We'll get someone else to write it." So, yeah, just buy it elsewhere, please.
James, thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. I know you're going back to Manchester. Vi skal over til noe helt annet.